What's up, friends? Thank you for tuning in. Today, you and I are sketching a custom 2019 Ducati XDiavel. It was built by Jaret Campisi. He's got a moto vlog channel and he does some pretty cool builds. I like this particular build for a number of reasons. I think the details that he chose come together quite nicely. So, grab a pen, pencil, or a drawing utensil. You and I are dropping lines. So we start this sketch off the way that we usually do, by laying in the ground line and blocking in the ellipses, blocking in the wheels. Now you see me measuring out the wheelbase. It's a little bit over 2 wheels long. Now there's 2 wheels in between the front and rear wheel, roughly. This is a pretty long bike, and the rear tire is a little bit larger than the front tire on this particular concept, or on this particular bike. And I come through, I'm using a very thin Prismacolor pencil. It's a lighter lead, if you will, even though it's a wax-based material, just to block certain elements in. Then you see here I switched back over to a regular Prismacolor that allows me to get a little bit darker, but I've already laid in or ghosted in some of the key hard points, right? The wheels, the top of the forks, the gesture line from the tank to the tail, which is pretty dramatic on this bike. The tank sits quite a bit higher than the tail, similar to like a classic cruiser that you might see from a company like Harley Davidson or Indian. So this is an interesting blend of motorcycle genres. The Diavel's really quite an innovative design when we think about it from that standpoint, meaning they blended sport bikes and cruisers and the naked bikes to create something entirely new. And you see here I'm starting to just work through the sketch, front to back, just back and forth, trying to lay in all the details, get the proportions right. And obviously we want to get the engine in there right, so we'll just block that in, and starting to then build out and adding some of the cladding that we see on the outside of the engine. And something that I really like about this particular bike that was put together by Jaret Campisi, just the attention to weight savings and performance as a general philosophy, I appreciate. So a lot of these stock parts were replaced with similar aesthetic aftermarket parts, but all these other parts were carbon, so they were significantly lighter. I think they lost something like between 30 and 50 pounds from the original, from the stock bike, which was, I want to say, just shy of 500 pounds. So that's a significant weight savings and in performance increase by doing so. And again, link in the description to actually see this build. It's worth looking at and worth watching. It's a pretty extreme bike. And then as I come through this sketch, I'm starting to block in as lightly as I can the details on the engine, and starting to block in that trellis frame around the head. And just working through the sketch, we're working on the belly pan, which in this particular custom is a full carbon piece. The wheels themselves are full carbon. And the exhaust, I guess they don't make a full exhaust system for this particular bike yet. So the exhaust, I think it was a slip-on, which is okay. Obviously not ideal, but it did remove the cat. So it should free up some extra airflow, which is significant. That's kind of important, something that you want from your aftermarket exhaust. He's got the clear clutch case, a clear clutch cover. That's actually like a little bit of a word, like a tongue twister. Clear clutch cover, clear clutch cover, clear clutch. I can't even say it. You do your best to try to say clear clutch cover 5 times fast. And as you see through the sketch, I'm just working through it. At this point, I'm realizing that maybe the rear wheel isn't in the right spot. It might be a little too close. I think I've sketched the bike and it's a little bit narrow. So I'm going to come through and move that rear wheel back just a bit to sit properly in relation to where the tail is and the exhaust and such. And that's why I start off by drawing really lightly, so that I can make a pretty major change later in the sketch. I mean, moving a wheel, if you're not in Photoshop, is it could be the end of a sketch if the wheel's not in the right spot. So I start off lightly so that I can make these sketches and then cover them over, sketch over them, and hide the mistake, if you will, and the finished product will look proper. So start off lightly and then build up to your darker values. And here I'm just working through the sketch, adding different details. He's got a custom Olin shock here on the rear, so I'm just kind of blocking that in. And then starting to punch out some of the gesture lines on the tail section, blocking out some more of the details on the seat. On this particular custom, he's got a seat cover. It's a leather seat cover with some X pattern detailing. I don't know if it's a plaid or what you really call like a diamond stitch, if you will. It looks pretty nice, actually. And then starting to set all these engine pieces back a little bit by adding some tone. The engine itself is largely blacked out as it is, so just starting to get some of that value read by giving it a light dusting of value, and then moving back to the front of the sketch and starting to put in some of the front wheel details for the disc brakes. He's got a disc brake vent, you know, to pull air into the brake calipers and cool them off. So that's kind of a cool feature from, you know, true performance feature. Really, you see these at MotoGP bikes and different race bikes. So that's a functional piece, which I like. Now, I'm not a huge fan of frivolous design or frivolous customizations that don't serve a real purpose. And that's part of the reason why I really like this particular concept or build put together by Jaret and his team, is because it's purposeful. I like that. It's not all just for show. All show and no go, as they say. This is a bit of show, but a lot of go. And I have some appreciation for that. And then just starting to set the rear calipers and rear brake discs back in shadow, and starting to block out some more of that wheel detail. And if I'm not using an ellipse guide, I just kind of gesture in the wheels. Ellipse guides make for a perfect ellipse, and that's cool, but I'm just a fan of freehanding the freehand ellipse for this type of a quick and rough sketch. If you really wanted to get more illustrative, I would tighten this up with ellipse guides and maybe some, you know, French curves and things like that, but I feel like that gets a little bit stiff sometimes. I like this, I'll call it a naked hand sketch. And then coming in and starting to make sure that I'm punching out certain details, right? Setting the engine behind the frame back, starting to let that clutch cover stand out by pushing what's behind it back in shadow just a little bit. And one thing that is maybe a little bit sloppy on this particular build are, and this is nitpicking, are the brake lines. Brake lines coming from the front are not really attended to, and they just kind of, you know, they as they probably were stock, they just kind of float out in the ethers. But I think there was an opportunity there. I'm also putting Excalibur's sword in the back, because if you can pull that out of the rock, you are worthy of riding this bike. Just adding a little bit of theme or story to this sketch, just having some fun. Add some more ground shadow, add your SIG, and that's it. I hope you found some value here today. If you did, please like, subscribe, tell a friend, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.